A center of excellence building skills and smiles amid every important state-of-the-art facility critical for tourism studies exemplifies the new outlook of the Gambia Tourism and Hospitality Institute in Kanifing. The institute is designed to be a leading center for tourism studies in the sub-region. Ibrahim Ajata reports the inauguration of the center expected to inject fresh impetus in the tourism sector. Well, that story will come in our subsequent newscast. We'll take our first break. We'll be back with news from outside the Gambia.
Lucozade Energy, energizing Gambia.
KGI Fashion Shop, Standard Chartered House, now brings you the very best ladies' lingerie, dress and tops, fashion jewelry, house curtains, ladies' wigs and mesh, ladies' shoes and matching bags, incense, coats and blazers for ladies, and much, much more. Wonderful men's fashion, including men's shirts and trousers. The best prices in town at KGI Fashion Shop. Go to KGI Fashion Shop.
Welcome back. President Barack Obama is continuing his tour of the Middle East with a brief stop in Jordan. The tiny Middle Eastern state is battling slow economic growth and also witnessing an influx of refugees from war-torn Syria. Jordanians of all ages are worried about the future of their struggling economy. We have details of that story in this CNN report.
Morning in the downtown bazaar often begins with a song. But don't be fooled by the bright colors and bustling atmosphere. There's a feeling of deep anxiety in Jordan these days. Even the wise men at the local barber shop say they're worried. I've never seen the economy this bad before, says 81-year-old Walid Khayat. But the most important thing, he adds, is for us to stay stable. Analysts say Mr. Khayat has good reason to be nervous.
On top of all the internal economical problem and the anger that has appeared in the past 2 years in the street, you have all the problems of the neighboring countries impacting Jordan. And it is a nightmare.
For the past 2 years, a brutal civil war has been raging next door in Syria, sending more than 450,000 refugees pouring into Jordan. Syrians now compete with Jordanians for scarce jobs, real estate, and even water. Jordan is one of Washington's most dependable allies in the Middle East. Both governments enjoy close military and intelligence cooperation. But this small desert kingdom has not escaped the ripples of the Arab Spring. Last November, riots erupted across the country when fuel prices jumped. Popular anger exacerbated by high-profile corruption, like this scandal that landed the head of the State Development Company in jail and left this pricey downtown real estate project frozen. The feeling of gloom has set in even here on the brand new campus of the American University in Madaba.
These are tough times in Jordan.
Yeah, and unemployment is really high, and Jordanians, they're worried about the future. They're worried about, like, yeah, we're living right now, but what's going to happen in the future, you know?
So it's very difficult to judge the amount of discontent at this particular time. But it is there. There is no doubt about it. And it's up to the government to work well, to reestablish credibility, and to convince people that it is on the right path of reform.
South Africa's President Jacob Zuma has called on the police to have more esteem for civilians' rights during an address celebrating the country's Human Rights Day. On a failed assassination attempt against President Joseph Kabila is the official report coming from Congo-Kinshasa, where an arms cache reportedly meant for the thwarted plot has been uncovered. For more on these and other stories, let's turn to the CFI report.
Supporters and opponents of Egypt's Muslim Brotherhood clashed outside the party's headquarters in a suburb of Cairo. Despite the intervention of riot police, activists ransacked the building. More than 120 people were injured in the fighting. Similar protests erupted in violence in Alexandria, the country's second-largest city, and in Mahalia. Opponents of Egypt's President Mohamed Morsi accuse him of having betrayed the revolution and of having failed to address the country's social and economic problems. UN Special Envoy Christopher Ross arrived on Friday in Laayoune in Western Sahara. Mr. Ross will attempt to reopen a direct dialogue between the Moroccan government and Western Saharan separatists. An offer by Morocco to grant Western Sahara greater autonomy was rejected by the Polisario Front, which is calling for a referendum on independence. Following his visit to Laayoune, Mr. Ross will head to Algeria for talks. Algeria also lays claim to the region. On Thursday, during an address given on the occasion of South Africa's Human Rights Day, President Jacob Zuma called on South African police to show greater respect for citizens' rights. President Zuma referred to the massacre of 34 miners in Marikana and said that police officers would be required to subscribe to an official code of conduct soon to be put in place.
The man widely regarded as the father of modern African literature has died. Nigerians are mourning the death of acclaimed author and poet Chinua Achebe, who died in a Boston hospital at the age of 82. We have more on that story in this report by CFI.
Acclaimed Nigerian novelist and poet Chinua Achebe has died at the age of 82 in a hospital in Boston in the United States. Achebe is considered by many as the father of modern African literature. He gained international recognition with his novel Things Fall Apart, which was published in 1958. It was translated into 50 languages and has sold more than 10 million copies worldwide.
I write to be read, to be acknowledged. In other words, it means what I've written has made some impact somewhere.
Things Fall Apart is about traditional Igbo culture's collision with British colonialism in the 1800s in Achebe's native southeast Nigeria. It was the first book to tell the story of colonialism from an African perspective.
I think that a lot of people, a lot of writers who are working, today really aspire towards writing a book like Things Fall Apart that would sort of have an impact on world literature in the same way.
Chinua Achebe's novels, poetry, and essays address poor governance and corruption in Africa. Nelson Mandela read Achebe's work while in prison in South Africa and once referred to him as a writer in whose company the prison walls fell down. Today, Nigerians are mourning the loss of a great writer and intellectual.
Chinua Achebe was an icon, one of the best, and his death is a great loss to Nigerians.
I feel very sad. It's a great loss to the literary world. It's someone who's had great influence on African literature, whose impact will be greatly missed by everyone.
Chinua Achebe spent most of his latter years in the United States, where he lectured at universities. His last book, There Was a Country, A Personal History of Biafra, was published in 2012. It is a memoir about the conflict in Biafra, which declared independence in 1967 and sparked a war that lasted until 1970.
We'll be back with the sports news after this break. Welcome back. The Gambia Scorpions this evening lost 3 goals to 0 to highly fancied Ivory Coast in the latest round of the